The beautiful banks of Daytona Speedway have been the mecca for American motorsports since its construction in the mid-20th century. Walking in the gates of this facility makes one truly appreciate the scale of racing in America. Each year, two of the most prestigious races in the world are held here, one with stock cars and one with sports cars. The Rolex 24 at Daytona is a race that every driver aspires to win. To slide the Rolex on your wrist is to put a period on your racing career. If you win here, you've done something. Tonight won't be a 24-hour race, but a 1-hour endurance event for the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League. 3 classes, each with different horsepower and weight values, will share the track in this event. No points on the line, no trophy to hold, no watch to put on the wrist, but there will be bragging rights that weigh almost as much. Welcome to SimTV. My name, of course, is Kyle Heyer, joined by Finian Nakuna and Larry Lefty McLeod. Finian, tonight we go endurance racing for the DC SCCA iRacing League at Daytona. Not the new one, the old one with the big bumps and banks.
Yeah, really looking forward to this race and enjoying the amount of road racing we're seeing, especially with the sports cars. We don't really get a chance to do a whole lot of it, especially the mixed class racing with prototypes. So it should be fun for tonight. And just kind of looking at the class breakup we have as well. In DPs, we have 5 drivers. In GT, which is the biggest class tonight, which is usually not the case. In IMSA, we have 17 drivers, and in GT3, 13 drivers.
Yeah, so actually, let's go over the class structure again tonight, just to kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with this evening. Prototype, Finian, purpose-built race cars, 600 horsepower roughly in the Corvette C7 Daytona Prototype, about 2,200 pounds. That's 600 horsepower in a car that weighs as much as a Miata. These things are rocket ships. GT Le Mans tonight, 550 horsepower, 2,800 pounds. These are cars like the Porsche 911 RSR, the BMW M8. What else we got in there? I'm forgetting two. BMW, Ferrari. I already said Ferrari. Ferrari 488. And there's one more. What am I missing?
You said BMW.
BMW, Ferrari.
Ford.
The Ford GT, thank you. The Ford GT tonight. And then GT Daytona, GT3 spec cars, international spec. 425 to 500 horsepower, 2,700 pounds, just a hair lighter. But a big diversity normally, but tonight it'll be the Mercedes GT Cup.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is one lone Audi. The guys in the class only had 2 choices due to how many cars you're allowed to have in the service. So it was between the Mercedes and the Audi, and almost everyone picked the Mercedes. Not too surprised there.
So, of course, again, we're joined by Larry Lefty McLeod. And Larry, tonight, an hour-long endurance race. We were just talking prior to the broadcast. Not a whole lot of strategy. You've got 70% fuel load, so it'll be 1 pit stop. But what are the things to watch out for tonight in a 3-class race at Daytona?
Well, obviously, with the 3 classes, you've got a huge speed delta. So really, whichever end of the speed spectrum you're on, you've got to be watching both your mirrors as well as your windshield watches in front and what's behind. You got to be looking at that relative screen to know what may be coming. But just if you're in a battle with someone in your class, there may be a prototype C7 coming up, roaring up behind you that you've got to be aware of and not blocking, because we get some big names in those cars. They're not just going to be out there lapping and having a good time. They're going to be racing each other in a pretty intense battle. So if they're going to be doing their thing while the GTD is going to be doing their thing, it's going to be really crazy to watch those deltas and watch all these battles sort of mixing in, and then throw in pit strategies. Do you come in at the 25 minute? Do you try to push it a little bit later? You know, all that's going to come into play in such a long race. You know, is patience going to pay off? Do you try to throw it into turn 1 and see what happens? There's tons of things going to be happening tonight. It's going to be crazy.
Anyway, let's look at our prototype category tonight. 5 Daytona prototypes in the race this evening, but let's take a look at some of the names. There are 5 drivers, and I would say 4 of them have quite the pedigree, not only racing in iRacing, but also racing in the real world. The current pole sitter right now is Kenton Cook, a driver who has experience in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, who manages and drives a team in an SRO now with a Aston Martin GT4. And of course, DJ Alessandrini, Nicholas Johnson, and Paul Darling, all drivers that compete on a weekly basis with each other here and in the Grid Life iRacers League.
Yeah, especially I'm interested in seeing DJ Alessandrini in almost every single car he gets, and he usually is competing up towards the front. And not too much different tonight. He's currently qualified in second. Then we got Nicholas Johnson, and another interesting driver too. We've seen him a lot in the IndyCar series. He's got a nice old Mazda tribute paint scheme on his car, and he's pretty good with the high downforce cars. So this should be pretty much right up his alley, and we'll see how much he can compete with Kenton Cook, Alessandrini, and Johnson. I am also interested in seeing Darling too. I haven't seen a whole lot of him in prototypes. Usually he opts for the slower cars, more GT style. So I'm curious on how he pegs up with the rest of the field.
Lefty, tonight, the GT Le Mans class is probably going to be one of the closest races. It's also the largest field, about 16 cars in there. Actually, make that 17 cars tonight. Max King and Ken House-Seal and Kyle Herbst at the top of the board right now. But, of course, GT Le Mans is built to be close racing. All the cars are so even. How can you leverage the cars' advantages over the other cars? I mean, I know for a fact the BMW's got a lot of straightaway speed, so how can you leverage that to be quicker than drivers in the Porsches, the Fords, or the Ferrari?
It's got the straightaway speed, so you got to make sure that you're maximizing that. You know, if you've got a chance to get a run on somebody, you make sure you use it. But if you're driving the Porsche, which is known to not have that straightaway speed, you better make sure you're making it up in the infield, not getting stuck behind one of those bigger, higher horsepower cars like the BMW on those infields. If the BMW is able to hold the edge all the way around the oval and then get to the infield and keep the Porsche behind them, that's an advantage there for someone driving that BMW. But when you look at who's driving what tonight, House-Seal driving a Ford, Kyle Herbst driving, I believe it's in a Porsche. Obadia is one of the BMWs. Dennis Barrett's in a BMW. He's in a BMW. So you've got some mix. Everybody's kind of picking different rides here. It's going to be interesting as any of those strategies come in. Does car choice make the difference here? Or is it just going to come down to, experience in driving this crazy track?
I will tell you one thing, the Porsche is by far the best sounding race car in this category. It just absolutely screams. We're watching Talas Sadiq come across the line, 7th in class right now, a 143.089. Let's head down to GT Daytona, Finney, and Jeff Jacobs in the 38. We've seen him before in the Mercedes tonight, as are a lot of people. How about Dave Fitzgerald, the number 91, second in the class right now with a 144.371. These are really quick lap times for the conditions.
Yeah, these guys are doing a great job. They're only about, they're only a few tenths off of the slowest GT Le Mans car now, being Lex Kurchek of the... And actually, even a few guys have kind of ended up in the middle of also the GT3 field as well. So, yeah, some of these guys are not that far from the GT Le Mans traffic. So, I doubt really those two classes are going to run into a whole lot of traffic with each other, maybe the back end of the field, but it's pretty much the Daytona Prototypes that are going to be working through a lot of traffic very often.
So about a minute and 28 seconds left in qualifying. I mentioned track conditions. Let's take a look here, Finney. It's about 3:40 in the afternoon and 75 in the air, 84 on the racetrack. Lefty, this Daytona, this is the older, bumpier version. These cars are purpose-built to be low slung to the ground. Do you think the bumps are going to be a challenge tonight, or do you think that's kind of already a given that these cars will handle okay given their status and their performance?
Well, I think it can be. I think we're leaving open setup tonight, right? So the guys have had a chance to play some practice and to try and tune that setup. But I think if you try to put it a little bit on that hairy edge, that bus stop chicane is always a bit of a crazy as you go throwing it in there. And if you hit a little bit up on the entry, it makes it real tough to carry any kind of speed on the exit, assuming you even make it out. So yes, the bumps can definitely come into play there. It's a bit of a wild card with this track. It's some of the drivers, you put a conservative setup on the car, try and make sure you finish the race. That might actually be a strategy that plays out.
Qualifying almost complete, 25 seconds left, and it'll be Kenton Cook on pole for Prototype. GTLM is still kind of up in the air, and I was talking to Larry before the broadcast finish. We're going to go by the American class standards because we're in America and because I said so. So tonight is, I know it's going to be difficult because I call them GTEs and GT3s most of the time because that's what they are. But for the sake of, carrying the IMSA thing, we're going to roll GTLM and GTD. So how about Paul Darling? Got a lap in and goes second quick right at the end, a 137.947, just in the nick of time. He got it done.
Yeah,
just under the wire.
Yeah, and in fact, the entire top four, right before it went away, the entire top four in DP were all within 4/10 of each other, which is really close when you consider it. So that field looking to be very close together. And I imagine they're going to definitely try to stick together as much as they can. I really feel like the battle for that class is going to come down to how well these guys can work through traffic, because they got to work through I think almost 30. Pretty much 30 GT cars over the course of the night. Just about. And you mentioned the racetrack tonight, Finian. 11 turns, 3.53 miles around here. This is not a short lap, but it is relatively mostly on throttle. So you're carrying a lot of speed around here. The draft is going to be a big discussion to worry about, especially at the start of the race, because the draft is a good thing on the straightaways. If you're following someone through corners, though, there's not a whole lot of fast corners here other than the bus stop, but you got to watch out for a little bit of aero push through there. Try
trying to follow someone, as well as the lack of curbs at this version of Daytona. I think that's the biggest change, Finian, is you don't have quite as much curbing, especially through the bus stop area, so you got to watch out for that grass.
Yeah, and I think in general, too, you got to also just keep in mind this is an older surface. Obviously, the new version of Daytona we have, that was pretty much straight off I guess the printing press. The asphalt was completely fresh. It was probably the newest that they could have scanned it, really.
Paving press.
Paving press, there you go.
We'll roll it back.
Yeah, so the track surface has a lot of grip. This version, this was only a few years before they scanned it. This surface is all worn and torn, and you can tell by the bumps that these guys are going to be going through in the oval section. So they got to have to keep that in mind and take, especially because I imagine quite a few of these guys are used to the newer version of Daytona in these cars.
So, an hour-long race, 60 minutes. Is that a long time tonight, Lefty, or is that a short race that's going to require a lot of aggression right from the start?
It's a long, long race, and I'm worried about turn one. You know, we've been joking around about the new catchphrase, pile of Kyles in turn one. I'm worried about that. You've got the number of cars in here. I'm worried about it.
I'm also worried about it because it's a standing start, which I don't think was supposed to be the case, but green flag flies, and we're racing for 60 minutes at Daytona for the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League. So far, so good, though. We got it done. Couple cones flying in the middle of the GT field, but so far, I think the leaders have gotten away without any incident. Nicholas Johnson going for the lead in Prototype down into the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, wasting absolutely no time to the inside of Kenton Cook. It's Johnson in that Mazda paint scheme on the outside trying to fight back.
And I think so far we haven't had any big incidents. There is a couple cars slow at the tail of the field. Dave Fitzgerald, one of those drivers. We're going to stay up front. Look at the top four prototypes, all nose to tail as they work their way through the West Horseshoe now. Yeah,
they got to be careful with each other. If they make a mistake, they could easily take out one another. And again, there's a very small field with them in general, so I'm sure they definitely don't want to lose more competitors.
So maybe the standing start was a good thing in this situation to come off the oval without the head of steam the first time through, but worries me now is let's get through the bus stop now with the head of steam and then come off the oval the first time into one with the full pack. Let's just keep our eyes on that.
Absolutely. So climbing up on the banking for the first lap here, it's Kenton Cook who's retaken the lead from Johnson, who was extraordinarily aggressive on that opening lap now into the bus stop. This is what Larry said would be tricky earlier, Finian, threading the needle through this area.
Yeah, but it's a very fine line, very tight, very narrow. Not so much for the prototypes, but definitely for the GTs. They got to be very careful. Ooh, some guys already going wide and side by side.
Couple cars off in the dirt, but otherwise I think we've gotten through there without much incident. I don't see any cars slowing. Ido Waxman in the 8 has gone around at the exit of the bus stop, right in the way of traffic. Very dangerous place to be. We'll see if he can get the ship righted here, but has to wait for all the GT cars to go by.
Yeah, finally now he can start to roll down the bank and get that car turned back around. But meanwhile, on the other side of the track, the Daytona Prototypes all nose to tail 1, 2, 3, 4 down at turn 1.
I think we expected prototypes to be really close, Lefty. But I'm not sure how long they're going to be able to run this close nose to tail. I mean, we're going to see the talent separate out, but these cars do draft pretty well, so maybe they'll stay like this for a little while.
Yeah, and the talent's here. These guys, if they're going to push, they're going to be very careful. These guys know how to run in tight quarters, all four of these, and I'm not too worried about them. What concerns me is some of the guys that don't have the seat time and iRacing that these four have as you get to the other classes. But these four in particular, I trust they know what they're doing. Even when they go to make a move, it's going to be clean racing.
Yeah, and I really think this is really what I was going to be talking about is Chris Shieldsman. He's been caught up right behind the GTE leader, or GT Le Mans leader, of Max King in the 32. And this is really where I really think the battle for the lead is going to come down to is how quickly and how well those guys, those top four, work through traffic. Because I think that's going to be the thing that separates them out.
Yeah, and I think for Ken House-Hill, this is a bit of a frustration to have a prototype kind of splitting the classes, but now Shieldsmith will use the power in that Daytona Prototype to clear Max King, and he'll get back out in front of him. We'll see if he can stay there, though. There's a challenge there. I think Devin McCoon has gone around for a loop, and this is at the exit of turn number 6. Right in the way of traffic and backs up straight into Robert Porter. And that's going to be a big crash for those two drivers. And McCoon just throttled up and too much power, not enough traction control, and looped it around.
Whoa, almost took out another car that was there. But his car's pretty much going to be done for tonight.
Across the line for the prototype lead, Nicholas Johnson on the outside. Comes off the banking into turn 1. Cook goes defensive and will hang on to the spot.
And I think really, again, if I'm one of these guys, I want to find myself in the lead by the time I hit traffic, because it's only going to get harder and harder to make passes when you got GTs in the middle of you. So I think that's really where these guys should be looking at, not just trying to hold the lead, but Going back to GT Le Mans, it's currently Kyle Herbst in the 89 Porsche, and then also Ken Alseal in the Ford GT. And it's an interesting thing too, because I would say out of all these cars, I'd say the Ford's probably the weakest and usually the least used out of the Ford GT Le Mans cars. So it's interesting to see him running very well up in second place. Of course, we know Ken Alseal, though, great driver.
Larry, some GT3s back in 17th overall. That's Jeff Jacobs in the 38. Some separation there, but the GTLMs and GTDs tend to kind of mingle a bit more than prototypes in GT cars. So how has that been a struggle so far? And do you think it'll be a concern later in the race?
I think we're going to see that in a couple laps. They start to mingle up a little bit. I think Jeff pulling away here is a little bit of a surprise. It's pretty much the entire field of those GTDs are all running in the AMG, so there's really all pretty much running the same vehicle. Jeff must just be, he's a good driver here. He's just getting himself a little bit of separation. Behind him, though, there's a couple of close battles there. But I'll be interested to see as those top leaders of prototypes catch them, if that really puts separation and how well the back of that GTD field handles the prototypes coming through them. Not so much how the prototype handles, but how the back of the GTD field handles being passed and lapped.
Yeah, out for the lead, Kenton Cook and Nicholas Johnson again going side by side. Both these guys want the lead, but neither one wants to give up.
Yeah, we've seen this, and we're going to see this a lot. I imagine Nicholas Johnson, he's got all that run that he's going to carry, and he's just going to go to drivers right into turn one. You have so much runoff there, you might as well just use that momentum rather than pinching it off and letting Paul Darling and Alessandrini get up to you. But this is telling, Finney, and DJ Alessandrini still exactly where he started. That's not often that you see that. That just goes to show you how good Darling, Johnson, and Cook have been so far.
Yeah, I think, honestly, if I'm him, I would pretty much do exactly that. I would just kind of sit and ride in for now. I'm sure he's going to kind of just wait for his moment to strike, looking at Greg Obadia. And interesting paint scheme, to say the least.
Yeah, the Ford EcoBoost BMW M8 tonight, so there's a little conflict of interest there somewhere. Max King is...
And some of these guys, the other thing that I find interesting is going to be that we do have to do a fuel stop. However, cars like the Ford GT do pretty well on fuel, but also in looking even at the prototypes, is someone like DJ sitting in the draft, can he conserve a little bit of fuel? Can he wait and fuel up a little bit later, maybe take a little less fuel? Maybe playing into his strategy to maybe take a shorter stop. There's those kind of things that might play out 20 minutes from now that we're just not quite seeing yet.
A little bit of a stack up through the bus stop as Johnson backed out a pass on Kenton Cook, and it stacked up Darling and Alessandrini. So we'll keep an eye on what they're doing. I do want to jump back to GT Le Mans again. Ken Alseal has gotten the lead away from Max King through all that chaos with Shieldsmith, and King has actually dropped now a half a second behind, but there's a duo of Porsches, Kyle Herbst in third in the 89 and Evan Schickel in the 33. Finian, can you think they could maybe work together, use the draft to catch Ken Alseal, or is it kind of every man for himself tonight?
I think for these guys, it's really pretty much every man for themselves. I mean, they might try to work together, at least, not fight with each other until they get up for the lead. That really depends if they, see eye to eye, although I imagine for Herbst, he doesn't want to bring in another car into that battle.
Yeah, and then for second in GT Daytona, Khalil Natirbov in the 31. That's that magenta and white car, and Spicer slides up the inside on the banking. That's very sketchy there with how bumpy the track is, Finian. You kind of yaw side to side a little bit through there as you jump over those bumps.
Yeah, you have to really be careful the way you try to make a move like that, obviously with the bumps, and you pretty much need to know where they are to make sure you don't find yourself into trouble. You look at Charles Foley in the 26, currently 9th in class. I believe one of also the only Ferraris in the GT Le Mans field. Lex
Kuracek has gone around for a loop, 12th in GT Le Mans. A little bit hot down into turn one, Larry. That's a trouble spot, always at Daytona.
It is. It's so tough to be coming off of the banking down there to try and get it woed down from that kind of speed. It's difficult. Old configuration or new, doesn't really matter. Tough corner.
So, 52 minutes left in this race, and I just discovered I was trying to figure out what was going on. There was an update to our graphics software, and it allows us to fast forward now, which is actually really convenient, because I was just thinking the other day, you don't really get to look at like the day to night transitions like at speed unless you go into the replay to do it manually, but now you can do it. It's just I didn't realize that's what that was doing.
Okay.
So now we got that sorted out. Anyway, back in Prototype, Cook and Johnston nose to tail, and less than a tenth separating them 10 minutes in, so I'm not sure that we can decide who's got the upper hand here. And as Larry said, Finney, and a lot of fuel saving probably going on. What about in the GT classes, though? How about 8th place, Andrew Chow in the Porsche, Larry?
Yeah, I'm just going to try and bounce around to where he's at.
8th place in GT Le Mans. He's got Francois Brou right behind him. 2 tenths back, and then Sam Scott in the 98 Porsche. So it's Porsche, BMW, Porsche, 8th through 10th in GT Le Mans.
Yeah, this little cluster here as they're coming around that oval. This is where it gets interesting going into one. Is who's a little braver or who's a little bit more, gonna wait just a little bit longer for the next one around, or who's just gonna play it easy. As you can see there, you get caught out a little bit wide, and you lose that momentum.
That was Brew that went a little bit wide there in turn number 1. So looks like Ken O'Seal has gotten a half a second lead over King, but King is keeping that gap pretty constant, Finian. So is he fuel saving potentially?
He could potentially be. I imagine for most of these guys, they might not necessarily have fuel saving on their mind. They might just kind of be trying to go for it. And also, I just noticed too that's a Flying Lizard paint scheme.
Looks good.
Yeah.
A lot of great paint schemes in the field tonight.
Yeah, so, and really, so for GT Le Mans right now, it's looking to be a race between O'Seal, King, Hurst, and Schickel. Your top 4 in class. They're all pretty close together.
And into the bus stop now, there is the 19 of Chris Shieldsmith, last DP, working his way through the bus stop, and then the GT Le Mans leaders coming on through, and the top 4 kind of all within a couple seconds, and then 5th through 7th, right behind that. That's all the way back to Greg Obadia in the 66.
Just keeping an eye on our prototypes to see if DJ is at that sort of margin where maybe he starts to lose the draft a little bit. He's about 8/10ths back from Johnston. So he's got to stay there unless he's going to lose that draft. If he does, it's going to be tough to stay with Cook and Johnson.
Yeah, they're flying right now. They're running low 138s. Last time I was a 138.5 for Kenton Cook. And now that's not quite as quick as they could run. The best lap for Kenton Cook is a 138.192, which is average 129.63 miles an hour. That's quick around here, Finian. But they're still making hay up front.
Yeah, if you go back in his second place with Johnson, he actually has the fastest lap of the race, 138.5, and I imagine that's definitely with the help of some draft off of Kenton Cook, who's in the lead.
Yeah, these are really quick lap times. Usually you can really only, I can only run these lap times at night when it's real cool, but the track temperature is in the mid 80s right now, so it's not super cool, but also you see some a GT Le Mans car up ahead. I believe that is Joe Camilleri in this 35 car, 16th in class. So now we've got multi-class interactions, Finian, so it's going to get real dicey here.
Yeah. Not quite yet. They're really just catching a few stragglers there. So there's that BMW he's passing, and they're also working past Porsche. That's
like a slalom.
It is.
Ryan Harrison. So so after getting through that, I think really the next group of cars that they're catching up to is really when they're going to start facing the brunt of the GT field.
If you notice, that helped DJ quite a bit as they had to make their way through there. Is DJ's right now back with them.
Yeah, that was almost a second that helped DJ close up on him. So yeah, he's right back in the mix now, and Johnson still kind of, this is a comfortable place to be. He's in second place right now. So Cook still's got the lead. Johnson putting pressure on him, but I'm not really sure how much of this is genuine pressure.
I think you're right. I think he's just trying to fill his mirrors, just kind of staying in there, but if he's also in a position where he can conserve fuel if he wants.
Right.
A little short shifting down the straightaway, stay behind him, maybe a little lifting, and just see where his fuel load's at in about 15 minutes.
We'll jump back to GT Le Mans. Across the line, Ken O'Seal is, he has Max King out in front of him, so it looks like O'Seal's actually given up a spot. He was 2 seconds slow last lap, so maybe either a slowdown, maybe cutting the bus stop potentially, Finian. That brought Kyle Herbst right up to the rear of O'Seal, so change for position in GT Le Mans.
Yeah, that's allowed King to pretty much start to open up the gap a little. I can imagine that O'Seal's going to let him get too far away. He's going to try to keep him as close as he can.
And Evan Schickel got a little sideways coming out of the International Horseshoe. And now back to GT Daytona. Jeff Jacobs continues to lead this category. They haven't really talked a whole lot about them because they've spread out mostly. David Graver and Kevin Zood are trying to trade positions here for 5th in class. But other than that, they've kind of found their own room to race, and no intense battles going on for now in GT Daytona.
Yeah, it looked like I think their class had probably the messiest start. I think because they were kind of caught up, I think, at the highest.
Whoa, sideways, David Graver down into one, and into the pit wall on the inside, and the 34 car, that's going to be pretty severe damage.
Yeah, he's actually stuck up on the wall, so I'm not sure we can try to reverse that thing and get it off the wall, if he's just going to call it a day.
Yeah, just got sideways on the brakes, and Lefty, they've got ABS and traction control in these cars, but sometimes that won't even save you.
Yeah, and that's probably the one good thing about those cars is that at least you do have the ABS for you. But if you at some point physics takes over and you just can't compete with that.
Yeah, and Francois Brou just went for a slide at the exit of turn number 6.
Yeah, this is always a tricky corner no matter what car you're in. It's just such a weird corner, putting a lot of wheel into the car, also trying to accelerate to get a run for the straightaway. Unfortunately, Brew going to drop down the order as Obeidi gets past him for 9th.
So running through your overall order, top 4 drivers are all prototype class cars. The Corvette C7 Daytona Prototype. Then 5th place overall is Max Ting, which is your GT leader. Hausilas closed that gap back to less than half a second through turn 1. Then it's Shieldsmith in the 5th and final Daytona Prototype, and then a string of GTLM cars, and then some intermingled GTLM and GTD cars throughout the rest of the field.
I think Shieldsmith ran into a problem last lap, ran a 152. All the other cars around him ran significantly faster, so I think he had maybe an off-track or some off-road excursion that slowed him down quite a bit.
No damage on that car, though, from what I can see, so be just a slight off-road excursion.
Well, going back to the King and Hausil battle, Hausil's moved back up into behind King, just a couple tenths now, kind of right on his tail. This is the part of the race now, what are we, about 14, 15 minutes in. I start to think about how do these tires wear. I know on the Porsches, the front tires take a beating. And if you're not careful how you're driving that car or how you've set it up, you can really start to wear those. The Ford GT's pretty good on those tires. The BMWs are pretty decent. So I'm kind of curious as this race progresses, how well can you conserve the Porsche front tires so you can still get that turn in?
Yeah, that's certainly going to be a concern. We just saw Cook and Johnson go all sorts of sideways down into turn 1. Cook locked up the inside front wheel, but managed to hang on to the spot even though Johnson had him cleared for a moment.
And if you look off the nose of Kenton Cook, you're going to see what these guys have been, I would mention, dreading. You can see a string of GT traffic up ahead of them. You'll see kind of, I guess, more of it when they come out of the turn. But yeah, they're starting to catch the really meat of the field now. As Evan Schickel in the 33's had some problems after running in 3rd.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he had any help or if he just got sideways. We talked about the curbs earlier tonight, and just
way too hard into the corner.
Yeah,
and
too
was
fast.
Look at that car rotated.
That was Kyle Herbst that slid by just in the nick of time to avoid a collision. But 44 minutes left. We're about 15 minutes into this race, and Kenton Cook has led. Looks like 6 laps, which is, I believe, about half of the laps that we've run tonight. So Johnson has eked ahead for a few.
The interesting battle here. I'm just watching the King and Hausil, and now with Hausil having led a couple of laps and King gotten by, I think Hausil's going to try and settle in behind him for a little bit and kind of let King lead and just kind of see where this goes as Herbst and all the others have sort of faded back a little bit. These two are just going to play a little cat and mouse, kind of, back and forth and just kind of see where this plays, gets about that last quarter of the race, and then maybe they'll start actually going at this.
Prototype leaders approaching traffic for the first time. Cook's out way wide in turn 1, a little bit sideways, and Johnson's going to take that opportunity to use the Mercedes as a pick. That's the number 136 of Robert Porter, and Johnson's through to the lead.
Oh!
Alessandrini gets clobbered by 4th place Paul Darling. They come to a stop, and it's very awkward down in the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, I think
that got awkward there with the lap traffic and got a little, I think Darling didn't really have anywhere to go, but a classy move by Darling, kind of waiting for DJ to get going again.
Yeah, it just a lot of brake check and everyone's stacking up, and Paul just kind of ran into the back of him, Finian, so he did give up the time and let Alessandrini get back out in front, but they've lost precious time compared to Johnson and Cook, because they will not slow down for them. They're going to have to catch them organically.
And this is what I was talking about really with the traffic breaking up this battle, and there we have it right there in the International Horseshoe, with 1st and 2nd getting separated from 3rd and 4th.
So now that we've got our prototypes kind of calmed down for the time being, well, I say that, they're going to catch some more GT traffic heading into the bus stop. This is a really weird place to catch cars fitting. It's all about that decision. Do I make the dive up the inside, or do I wait to pass them on corner exit? There's a car sideways there. That's Lex Kuracek in the number 11 Porsche. And that was right in front of her.
Game of the night.
Oh, man, that was close on corner exit.
It wasn't actually as bad as I thought. He was able to keep the radius turn tight.
Glad you thought it was okay. That scared the heck out of me.
It looked like he was going to go into the racing line, but he was just off of it, so he did a pretty good job with that. Meanwhile, side by side for the lead yet again. So these two now taking advantage of the kind of lead they've built now to 3rd place DJ Alessandrini.
I really don't think Johnson wants to lead. I really think
he might not have a choice. Here,
he's gonna have a choice now.
Man, Cook is going to go around for a loop. And he's going to lose all that time he just built on Alessandrini and Darling. He's going to get it rolling, and he'll probably lose 2nd. He'll drop down to about 4th place here.
Yeah, a big mistake for Kenton Cook, and Johnson, well, he pretty much just got handed the lead of this race for now with a comfortable 6-second lead.
Well, we also just saw Paul Darling spin the tires out of the International Horseshoe. Lefty, how much tire wear do the rear tires of the DP have to deal with? Because the fastest way to run this car is to turn the traction control off and just basically power drift out of every corner. So are the rear tires a concern for the DPs?
They can be, yeah. If you decide you're going to be the hero and crank that down, like you said, yes, you'll definitely wear those out. And that's, these guys might still be pushing it. You get comfortable, right? You're about 20 minutes into this race. You start thinking, oh, I know where this is going to break loose. And suddenly it goes on you. If you're lucky, you start to feel it and you can back out and hold it there. And the next time by, you just don't squeeze a little bit that much. But, maybe in this case, Darling was able to kind of keep it under him. And
oh, no! Right in front of the GT Le Mans leaders. That was a car slowed, and that was, I believe, David Stern in the 24 Audi right in front of Max King and Ken House-Seal, and somehow they didn't come together. That was very, very close.
Yeah, very, very solid driving out of both those guys to predict where the 24 is going to end up, and they picked the right lane.
Yeah, this is just a slow, lazy spin right in front of the leaders. That could have been so much worse than it was. Okay, now that
boy.
And Stern just got rear-ended by, I believe that was Ito Waxman in the number 8 BMW, so it's getting a little rough elbows out there right now.
Like I mentioned before, this is the point where the race where the tires start to go a little bit, and if you don't account for it, this is maybe what's happening.
So I'm going to jump down to the overall order here for a moment. I want you to take note from 15th on back, Finian. Look at the class intermingling we've got between GT Le Mans and GT Daytona. 2 GTs, then a GT Le Mans, 2 GTs, GTDs, and then another GT Le Mans, and then it's that pattern, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, all the way down the order. This is really awkward for a lot of these drivers to be dealing with. I mean, these cars are not that different. They're really close in power and downforce level, but it's just enough to be annoying.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do, you typically don't see it a whole lot in IMSA usually because all the GT cars are pretty much factory effort. So you got pretty much all pro lineup, and then some of the best guys in the GT world racing in that class, and then the GT3 typically GTDs typically more pro am. And I also believe there's also some tuning that's involved as well, detuning and to separate the cars a little bit more. We don't really have that much in iRacing. You can see.
They just added the power adjustment that would actually be helpful if you could pull back the GT3s a little bit. And 3 wide on the front straightaway between the 6th, 7th, and 8th place GTLMs and the number 47 Audi. I believe that's the 47, the 24 Audi of David Stern. So, 20 minutes into this race, and Nicholas Johnson has a 5.7 second lead over Alessandrini, Darling, and Cook.
And it's actually dropping a little bit. It was a little over 6 seconds last time we saw him. Now it's started to drop down to just under 6 seconds. So Alessandrini's starting to eat into that lead just a little bit. And if I'm these guys, I would start to try to work together, especially now that they're entering some cleaner air.
Yeah, so Larry, you said earlier that Nicholas Johnson didn't want to be in the lead, that he wanted to kind of use the opportunity to draft and save fuel. How has his strategy changed? Is he going to just try to outrun these guys now, or is he okay with them catching him and just getting back in line and continuing the race?
Well, now I don't think he has a choice. He's going to be looking at that relative screen, trying to manage that gap. But he doesn't have much of a choice. He's got to go. He doesn't have any partner to play with now like he had with Kenton for so long. DJ now is trying to manage that gap with Kenton and Darling, and they're going to be swapping spots and doing this drafting, trading around the oval. Nick Johnson's got no choice. He just has to go, and hopefully the lap traffic doesn't hold him up as much as it holds up the guys behind him.
A big mistake for Bully there in the 26 is going to completely mess up the bus stop, and I think have a time penalty to boot as well.
That's a slowdown, so it'll pull him from 6th, put him back to about 8th position as Schickel and Sadiq go through. And GT Le Mans, a bit more drama. As for the lead in GT Le Mans, though, King and House-Seal resuming their battle where they left off.
And the thing we didn't really cover is that the gap, I was looking at the time scoring, expanded to about a second between both of them, and then House-Seal closed the gap yet again. So I think House-Seal has a faster car. I just don't think he's flexing his muscles completely at this point.
And again, in GT Daytona, looking down the order, no real battles going on between GT Daytona cars. Now, they are intermingled with the GT Le Mans cars, but we do see some pit stops, and leader Jeff Jacobs has come down pit lane, which has turned over the lead to Richard Spicer.
Yeah, not too surprised with seeing pit stops now. We're only 6 minutes from being halfway through this race. And it looks like it's going to be fuel only for the 38. I imagine almost everyone else will probably be taking fuel only.
So So on and off
It'll be
goes.
interesting to see how far the tires drop off as the race goes on. But I don't know how long it takes to take tires, but that is a huge penalty if you decide you're going to make that gamble.
Yeah, let's take a look at Richard Spicer's last lap time. He just ran a 1:45.879. His quickest was a 1:45.390. It's a half a second drop. It's not enormous, but it's not insignificant either.
And that's the thing too. Again, you have to consider the fact that in endurance racing, you typically run the tires for more than one sense. You usually come in, one time you'll just get fuel, and then on the next stop you'll come in and change your tires, and that's when they really start to wear out because these tires are pretty durable. So, yeah, with the amount of time that it takes to change them, I doubt anyone's gonna try to do it. As you see, Chris Shieldsmith, he spun around, exiting the butt stop. It's not been a great day for the 19.
No, he's going to drop down to 11th overall behind 6th place Evan Schickel and GTLM. A couple other cars. I would expect to see more pit stops soon. We only had a handful of drivers make stops so far.
I think a lot of the other guys are in the mindset that they want to run the car obviously lighter and pit only really when they have to, though a few guys are opting to come in. There's Evan Schickel in the 33, surrendering 6th place in class.
Pit early or pit late, Larry? What do you think is the call tonight? Do you run the tank out of fuel and go for a shorter stop, or do you pit now and get it over with?
I tend to do it depending on what's happening on the track at the time. If I'm stuck behind somebody, if I'm stuck in traffic, or there's something that I see coming based on relative screen in front of me, I might pit early just to avoid that. If I'm in a rhythm and I just don't want to break that rhythm, I might just stay out a little longer and pit later. So I tend to make that decision within that window, within that 25 to 35 minute window.
Yeah, and I think also, too, for some of these guys, I think it might also depend on how they've set up this car, because this is an open setup race for these guys. Ooh, and the jack's going up on the 33, so he's taking tires, and you can see that it took him a while to get the jacks, so the car is fueled, so he's taking tires separately.
Yeah,
and it's going to cost him a lot of time.
Yeah, again, so this pit stop is now exceeding a minute long, and this is time on pit lane as well. So this is a long time for Schickel to be sitting here. I'm not sure this is going to pay off for him on the racetrack, but I'm not sure if he meant to take tires, but he is, and it's going to be a 52.6 second pit stop.
I hope he can make the most out of those tires, whether he meant to or not, and he's off and away.
Remember, in the last season, we had one of these races in a similar format in this exact scenario where do you or don't you take tires? And I think in that case, I think it was a TCR cars that decided go ahead and change the tire. Now that's a car where it abuses front tires, and they decided to go ahead. And the car that changed the tires, I believe, is the one that ended up winning in a different scenario. But maybe the mindset is the same here. Maybe the tires are taken abuse. Maybe Daytona isn't as abusive, and that becomes your margin of decision making. But we've seen in the past, sometimes taking tires can help in a long race.
Yeah, I think one of the things to be concerned about, though, is that the TCR car is on the new tire model V7 version, and these all the cars in this series are on the V6 tire model, which don't seem to lose as much pace over the course of a run. Whoa, big bobble by Ken Seal into turn 6, but I am curious to see how the lap times are going to pan out. I guess we'll keep an eye on Evan Schickel, knowing that he took tires. Meanwhile, in Prototype, Nicholas Johnson continues to lead the race. Kenton Cook has shaved that lead down to 4.7 seconds. It was over 7 seconds at one point.
Yeah, so it looks like Johnson's, not necessarily taking his time, but not pushing the limits of his car, because obviously he's got a lead to work with. And I mean, I think if he manages his gap a little bit more, I think he might even increase his pace just a little. He should be able to keep the lead until the end of this race.
Throttling back up, nearing the halfway point now, about 2 minutes away from that. So we've got a pretty good selection of who's had speed so far. Curious about Jeff Jacobs, where he's going to pop out in relation to Richard Spicer. I don't think Jacobs took tires, but he did come down pit lane a second time, I'm seeing. So I wonder if he got a penalty there, Finian.
That could be the case, and obviously you have only one pit stop to do in this race, and you can't mess it up. And unfortunately for the 38 Jacobs, that's going to pretty much cost him his lead.
Yeah, well, let's see if that's the case. It's showing 2 pit stops on the monitor. Yeah, it's 2 stops. And yeah, it was a 16. That seems like a
15-second penalty.
15-second penalty for speeding on pit lane. That's real unfortunate. Peter Enzer going a little wide into turn 1. We haven't talked about him yet tonight, Finian. Again, competitor in the Spec MX-5 Challenge Series. And he's joined us in the booth a couple times for the Sim Racing Challenge version, as he rolls around 7th in class right now.
Yeah, Richard Spicer is now looking at that. I'm not sure if he probably realizes, too, that Jacobs has gotten a penalty, you know, unless he's really paying attention to his relative, trying to keep track of his competitors. As a few more guys are down on pit road. There's Paul Darling in the 155. He's running 4th place.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the tires for this particular car. I would think rear tires are going to be melting on this thing by this point. I would feel like taking tires would be a good smart call, but we'll see. He is up on the jacks.
Yeah, he might only take 2 tires, too. He might not take all 4s. You don't have to in prototypes, and it does save you some time.
And pretty quick stop, it seemed like. So maybe he did just take 2, because that was a 17-second stop. Maybe, and I don't know how fast they change on this car, but that's pretty quick.
Yeah, and again, also, too, they don't have to fuel it all the way as well, so it'll
Right.
save you some time with that as well, and he's off and away. So we'll see how the rest of that field decides to service their cars, because it could matter amongst seconds, because they're all within, I think, about 8 or 9 seconds of each other, all 4.
Well, a couple things though. He is the first of the prototypes to stop. Took himself out of that mix there with DJ and Kenton Cook. Kenton is inching a little closer to Johnson as he's now just outside of just about that 5-second mark there behind Johnston. And I'm wondering at what point does Johnston, Cook, Alessandrini now decide to pit, knowing that Darling's just done it. This is going to be interesting in the prototypes.
I think we're about to find out what's going to happen here as they exit oval turn 4. Will Alessandrini or Kenton Cook dive to pit lane? It looks like Kenton's coming. No, yes. They made a late decision on the brakes. Alessandrini's going to get in real deep, blocks him up for a moment, but both those cars are in.
Good time to watch them both.
Absolutely. And also,
exciting part of the race.
I might be one of the few
Dueling
people.
pit stops.
Yeah, I might be one of the few people that thinks that C7 DP is one of the most beautiful race cars ever built. Real tight into pit lane. And Alessandrini's in up on the jack, so is Kenton Cook, so tires seems to be the way to go.
Yeah, you're saying before that?
I'm saying that the C7's gorgeous and everyone that hates the DP is wrong.
I just wish we had the new one, but I definitely think the C7 is a beautiful car.
I just wish this car was BOP properly for the
DJ's
GTs.
moving first.
Oh man, race off pit lane! Alessandrini, side-by-side contact, and Kenton Cook bullies his way through and wins the race off pit lane. Wow, that was awesome.
So where's Darling?
Yeah. Where's Darling?
A few seconds behind these guys, actually just coming out of turn 1 now.
Yeah, he's gonna drop. I don't think he was in front of these two before pit lane.
He was behind them, I think, so he didn't really gain a whole lot. If anything, he might have lost some time.
Might have lost just a little bit.
Seems like it. Looks like Chris Shieldsmith has pulled the car off the racetrack for the night. So now Nicholas Johnson, the lone prototype left to come to pit lane. Where will he pop out? He had a 5-second lead before. We'll see if that is retained after he comes down for tires and fuel.
Yeah, see if he does opt, or if he just kind of wants to run the tank out of gas. Still looking at the battle in GTLM. All these guys have not given a break to this battle, really. I think Ken Osceola, though, he's just staying behind the 32 Max King's the only car he's got to beat.
So Johnson into pit lane. Here he comes.
Yeah,
Prototype leader.
And this will really be where we can kind of see, you know, how these strategies have all played out. We want to actually extend it, too, just to kind of take a look at how everyone else did on pit road.
So Cook had the slowest of the 3 stops so far by those cars, 17.3.
Yeah, but there's all our stops were within
position.
0.4 of a second.
Yeah. 0.4 of a second, so pretty close battle on pit lane. So Johnson's up on the jacks. We'll see if he can get this done in a timely manner.
Yeah, he can afford to lose a few seconds, but I imagine for his lead, he wants to be as quick as possible. And it was the quickest stop out of the 4 DPs.
Yeah, 16.7, so he should come out with a pretty solid lead still. Kenton Cook across. Ooh, this might actually be a little closer than we thought. Cook across the start-finish line into turn 1. And Johnson just now pulling on course. About retained about a 5-second. Oh, 3.3. Or so gained about a second and a half.
It's a little bit long. I'm curious if the. I guess the time of pit road will matter a whole lot.
No, it's pretty much the same on pit lane.
So I guess potentially
It took about a second though. It was over 5 when they started the sequence there.
Yeah.
So a little bit of grain. Excuse me, one more time. A little bit of ground gain there for Cook and Alessandrini.
And Richard Spicer in the GT Daytona category has not made his pit stop yet. Neither has Khalil Natirbov, Will Robbins, and I think they're the only GT Daytona cars to not hit pit lane. So our podium drivers right now still need to make a pit stop in GT Daytona.
And you mentioned there about Jeff Jacobs and that second pit stop that he did. It looks like the beneficiary of this right now is Kevin Zhu. He's got about an 8-second advantage on Jacobs. That would definitely be the benefiting.
Something's happened to Paul Darling. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, out of the race. Just pulled off the racetrack. So what has happened to Paul Darling? Let's take a look. Looks like he might have just looped the car around and called it a night. This is at the exit of the West Horseshoe. Got it on the grass, Finian, and just spun out and That's just a frustrating way to end, to get taken out of contention like that.
Yeah, I think he figured that there's not really much of a point. There's no other cars to really compete with. Also, Chris Shieldsmith has pulled it off the track and called it a night. So we're down to 3 DPs in class, but they're all within 3 seconds of each other and closing. Kenton Cook has closed up a lot. 2 seconds now, the gap between himself and Nicholas Johnson for the lead. So he's really making up time.
A really, really impressive run by Kenton Cook tonight. Just last lap, run a 137.9. It's not the quickest lap of the race, but it was a really, really quick lap as he continues to hunt down Johnson. Gained a whole other 10th through turn 1. Richard Spicer, our GT Daytona leader, is in pit lane, but he scored in a strange spot. I wonder...
Oh, did he retire?
Did he retire the car, Finian? Oh, no, looks like he just came into pit lane. I'm not sure why the scoring is
a bit
confused, but that seems to be the case. We'll see where he pops out.
Hopefully it corrects itself. Feels like we've been sitting up here for quite a while.
Yeah, not really sure what the... Oh, he's back rolling again, so just in a weird spot on the timing and scoring. That's there it goes.
There we go, okay.
Will Robbins takes over. It'll be first in class for now. Still needs to make a pit stop.
I'm waiting for our King and House Seal battle to start the pits, and I think it may be happening now. No, this is still... And a lap around, waiting for these guys. They're turn 1.
Yeah, 2 tenths between them. Third place in GT Le Mans, we haven't really talked a whole lot about. Kyle Herbst, and was a staple of the series back last year, running around the Mustang quite a bit. But we haven't seen him a whole lot lately, but now he's a very brightly colored 911 RSR in third place right now. It's been a good night for him. Sam Scott in 4th. Usually right on the nipping at the heels of Paul Darling, but they chose different categories tonight. Then Charles Boley, Greg Obadia, Tala Sadiq, Barrett, Schickel, and Chow. The rest of your GT Le Mans top 10.
And from the looks of it, it looks like Richard Spicer should be the car that inherits the GTD lead. He's going to be the highest scored GTD driver that has made a pit stop. And as far as Jeff Jacobs,
he's got about 9 or 10 seconds on Kevin Zhu there after his stop.
Yeah, and Jeff Jacobs looks like he's going to be, once his whole cycle's out, he should be in about 3rd place, no lower than 5th.
So, let's check in on prototypes. Nicholas Johnston, last time by, a 138.8 to Kenton Cook's 137.9. So, Cook still eating away at that lead.
And a lockup, too, for Johnson going to the West...
International, or yeah, no, you're right, West Horseshoe. I get them confused all the time.
I forgot the second word. I was like
the West corner.
I was like, all right, West, something. But yeah, so Johnson working through. He had a lockup there, and now trying to get through some traffic. But definitely, Kenton Cook and Alcedrina are going to catch him before this race is over.
Yeah, we're going to have a really interesting battle for the lead here. I got to say, this is the first time I think we've done an IMSA modeled sports car race, you know, that has as many cars as we do. It's been a spectacular race so far. Still 23 minutes to go as Cook and Alessandrini work by a GT car through the bus stop.
Yeah, we're looking at 2 dogfights in the classes coming down to the last 20 minutes of the race in Prototype and GT Le Mans.
Yep, Will Robbins and Khalil Natirboff coming in, sacrificing 2nd and 3rd in GT Daytona. They've completed their stops. Kevin Zhu now 2nd in GT Daytona. He's got 9.8 seconds if he wants to go catch Richard Spicer in the lead.
Yeah, it's a tall order to make up in only a little over 20 minutes left, as long as Spicer doesn't make a big mistake.
Sam Scott in GT Le Mans, so he's in for his stop. Let's jump up again to Prototype because the lead is about to change. I'm sensing a lead change coming, and it's Kenton Cook right behind some. That's the 66 of Obadia.
Yeah, that's because it's going to be postponed a little bit, although Johnson has a big lockup entering the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, he's pushing that car really hard, and it's hurting him. He's been a lot slower than Cook the last couple laps, and we can only presume, Larry, that they're on relatively similar fuel loads as well.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm watching Johnson, and he got a little help there going into 1. He helped the separation, but it didn't help him much as Cook and Alessandrini are just on a mission. And DJ's being very patient right now. He had a chance to draft and try and get inside of Kenton, and he's not. He's staying behind him, using the draft, pushing Kenton a little bit. The 2 of them, I think, are working together a little bit right here to try and make this the last 10 minutes dash for win. Don't be surprised if DJ ends up the one out on top on this. And remember, early on, he was the one sitting back and forth that we looked at, well, maybe he didn't have the pace to keep up. He looks like he's just got a well race planned out right now.
Into the bus stop now, a little single file, 1, 2, 3 all together within 7/10 of a second. And GT Le Mans, it looks like we've had a strategy adjustment because I thought House Seal and King were going to come together. Looks like they have not, so Halcyon hits pit lane before King does. I thought they were going to pit together, Larry, so how does that change his strategy for King?
Well, he's got to make sure he doesn't get caught in any kind of traffic here and get himself a good in-lap, now knowing that they're not coming in together, because it's that wild card unknown of, well, what's Halcyon's in and out lap like? He doesn't know, so he just kind of got to go. And King Halcyon right now is going to possibly get caught up with a couple of other cars. He's got to really watch himself, because he's going to come out right in the middle of this prototype battle and probably have to yield.
Yeah, there he is on the outside of Nicholas Johnson, and Cook trying to take the position down into turn 1 fitting, but was unsuccessful. Johnson held the spot, but I think this is a fleeting lead for Johnson with how quick Cook has been the last couple laps.
Yeah, he really has been, although I imagine that Kenton Cook's going to have a little bit of trouble trying to make up time on the 17. If anything, he's got the draft to work with on the straightaways, but we saw there he was right behind Johnson last time through, wasn't able to make the pass, so we'll see if he has better luck this time around.
Yeah, just being defensive down into turn 1. It's so difficult to make a pass around the outside there. You're kind of waiting for a mistake, but anywhere else on the racetrack, you can make the move. I think the best passing opportunity is on the front straightaway if you can get to the inside of the driver.
Yeah, I think also too, Kenton Cook, obviously that car is looking to have a little bit more grip and just being a lot more stable than the 17, so if he can get a better run out of the bus stop, he might be able to make a move.
And King is in.
And Max King hitting pit lane, GT Le Mans leader, as we watch the battle for the prototype lead through the bus stop.
Pretty even for both of them, and the problem here is that Kenton Cook's all the way up to the 17, so not really going to get a whole lot of run, has to work around the outside, so he's kind of with in between a rock and a hard place right now.
Yeah, he's going to swing to driver's right again, and this was unsuccessful last lap. I'm not sure if that'll change this lap. We're also going to see King probably get released right into this. 3 wide on the front straightaway. Here comes Alessandrini to the inside. He backs out. That was probably just for show. He's going to laugh at that later. Down into 1. Cook completes the pass. Can he hang on? He does! A little bit wide, though, as they exit the corner.
Yeah, hang on is a loosely used term there, but is able to just clear the 17 and Johnson out into the international horseshoe.
Lockup. Big lockup for Cook. And throttling back up on corner exit. Now he's got the lead. Put Kenton Cook back out front. Now checking in on GT Le Mans. King comes out behind. Ken Halcyon changing position for the lead in GT Le Mans.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what Halcyon was planning. I think he didn't want to pass, waste time
trouble.
passing.
Cook around. Leader in prototype. Spun out in the West Horseshoe.
Contact?
Might have been. Let's take a look from up above here. Did Johnson tag the 13 of Kenton Cook into the West Horseshoe? Up in there. Oh no! Cook just lost it. Just outbraked himself.
A big mistake out of Kenton Cook. That's gonna cost him the lead.
Yeah, but let's go back to GT Le Mans, Larry. King 6/10 back. Do we have a favorite out of these two, or do you think Halcyon's got this from here on out?
Well, it's going to be tough because I think King maybe could shake off whatever he did. I wonder if he was a little bit too conservative on his in-lap, whereas he had clear track. He didn't seem to have anybody in front of him, but just maybe a little bit too conservative coming in, where Halcyon just nailed it, really, despite having that traffic come back on the track. But being, to me, the trailing car here is always the advantage. You can kind of draft, you can set up, you know where you're faster. He's already made this pass once tonight. I think, if anything, King may have the advantage here with about, what do we have, about 18 minutes to go. So keep your eye on King. He may bide his time, but I think he's got a good shot here to make a move.
So he's looking at Greg Obadia in the 7th place. He's off the track a little bit. He's going to get back on. But talking about Max King, he made up a lot of time and is still making up quite a bit of time going down into turn 1. So he closed in about 2/10 just being in the draft with Ken Halcyon. So I think that battle for the GT Le Mans lead is far from over.
Yeah, GT Daytona once again. Richard Spicer continues to lead. Kevin Zhu in second in the class, 11 seconds back. Then it's Jeff Jacobs, 4.2 back, and he's making up time on that second place car.
He's made up about 6 seconds on Kevin Zhu in probably about the last 10 minutes. So it's going to come close. He might be able to get second spot back. I don't think he's got enough to catch Spicer without a mistake, but Jeff is definitely on a mission to catch Kevin.
And there goes Kenton Cook on by, and he is trying to make up some of that ground, and he has about a half a second in the last lap or so. And now the question becomes, will Alessandrini and Johnson end up battling enough that gets Kenton Cook back in the race? We're far from over. Still 17 minutes left. That's a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see these guys battle a whole lot of anything. I imagine DJ's just going to kind of sit and follow in line in behind Johnson until the last lap or two, so that way he can keep Kenton Cook out of it. So it's just between him and Johnson. A little bit of a shake for Kenton Cook through the bus stop, and there's the GT Le Mans leaders.
Still leading by about 7/10 of a second, but King gets such a good run through the exit of the bus stop. And let's talk about the car differences again, because the Ford strong suit is not the straightaway speed Finian, but Ken's been making it work for him tonight.
Yeah, and also if we can we just ride on board with the Porsche?
Absolutely, we can ride on board with the Porsche. The sound of this car is just the greatest automotive auditory experience.
I'm an AMG fan. The Porsche is okay, but the AMG sound is it for me. So if you're gonna do an in-car, go ahead and jump in, with Jeff Jacobs or something at some point.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
We'll do that right now. We'll run on board, listen to the low V8 rumble.
That's good stuff.
It does sound pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's such a stark difference, and I think that's the greatest thing about GT, both GT3 and GTE. There's a huge list of cars and different variety of cars in that class, and it's looking actually to change up quite a bit for the next iteration of both classes. It seems the AC is kind of tired of balancing out four-door cars to two-door cars, and I believe they're going just with coupes going on.
Is there what four-door GT3 cars are there? I'm not familiar. Is the Lexus a four-door? I feel like the Lexus is.
The Lexus, and I think maybe not.
But the Lexus doesn't. It only runs like one team. It wouldn't be a big loss. They're probably gonna go Supra eventually anyway. But I guess, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I thought you were gonna say something silly like they're gonna mandate an engine. I was like, they better not. They better not ruin it.
That they're keeping, yeah. It's just the problem between, I think, really just coupes and traditional coupes and sports cars, and they're having trouble kind of balancing out perfectly, so they're just trying to simplify the process.
Of course, the Ford GT always sounding like the most prototype-looking and sounding vacuum cleaner I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, no longer competing.
Yep, that's real unfortunate. I was hoping that there'd be a privateer team that would take one. I mean, they are great-looking race cars.
Yeah, at least to
I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends that work for Ford, and we're working on that Ford GT program. And this year, with all of them sitting at home last weekend watching the 24, a lot of them were texting and saying it just isn't the same for them, and not having a team out there. It was a bit sad. I think it really was to not have a Ford team out there. It was a bit sad.
Yeah, where there is hope, and I'm kind of hoping at this point, is with the new ACO IMSA merger that's not merger, but the regulation merger that was announced for the with the LMDH, is that I'm hoping that potentially Ford decides to join that and take a car to Le Mans.
That would be fun.
In the leading class this time.
This is Peter Enzer. We're just looking at a replay now, and the number 49 was running 5th in class in GT Daytona, and got out of turn 1, got on the curb, and through the kink, he just hit the pit wall and crashed out. That's a bad way to go this late in the race. A rare mistake by Peter Enzer.
Yeah, unfortunately, because he was running inside the top 5 in that class. Unfortunately, he's going to have to retire the car. But up for the lead, DJ Alessandrino over the back of the 17th Nicholas Johnson.
Yeah, I think they're just toying with each other for now. There's still so much time left to go. I don't really think there's any advantage for Alessandrino to get the lead away. Kenton Cook has not been able to close in anymore on those two leaders. So I'm not going to consider him out of the race yet, but he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be a part of this battle at the end.
Yeah, and I think what DJ just did there was two things. One is he doesn't need to make that pass. It's too risky. It's too early. If there's 3 minutes to go, he makes the pass. The other is he's looking behind him and Kenton Cook going, well, you know what? Johnson and I drafting together are going to be much faster right now. Let's keep Kenton way away from us so we guarantee the two of us finish 1-2. So he's kind of making sure he protects his race, but he's also making sure the two of them are protecting, keeping Kenton behind him.
12 minutes and 50 seconds left, and we just see a change of position. Talas Sadiq took away 6th from Greg Obedi in GT Le Mans.
Here comes Max King making a move.
Oh, here he comes to the outside on the front straightaway through the tri-oval down into turn 1. And
it's a long way to go.
Yeah, it is a long way around there. He's going to tuck back in line, but the battle is on for the lead in GT Le Mans. I'm cheering how good this car sounds.
That's easy to see out of. The Ford GT looks like it's sitting in a submarine inside the cockpit.
That's actually an interesting note, is how much taller the Porsche 911 RSR is compared to the Ford GT.
Yeah.
Whoa, dicey there. That is Richard Spicer. Or no, that is Jeff Jacobs, I believe. Yep. In the number 38. Who is your third place car in GT Daytona after losing the lead due to a pit road penalty. Sits quite a ways back from the class leader.
The best way to watch this battle right now is from Jeff Jacobs. You get the great sound of the AMG, and you get to watch the battle of the GTLMs in front of you.
We'll run on board. Here we go. The torque of this Mercedes it just turns the earth the other direction. But for the lead, for GT Le Mans, Ken Ausil on the outside, going to heed the spot. King takes the lead away and through the bus stop.
Yeah, not done yet, though. I imagine that Ken Ausil is going to be shaping up to get a run in behind.
I've done that twice in the last couple of days. I gotta remove those cameras. You can't, though.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
That's
I
so
would if I
frustrating.
could.
No one saw that. It's fine. King leads the way, though. 0.3 of a second over Ausil. We talked about how the Ford doesn't really stretch its legs on the straightaways, but in the draft now, this Porsche is a tall car, puts out a lot of wake, and look at Ausil back to the outside 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, side by side with these guys at the line. If they end up like that, it'll be very interesting to see how who's going to hike ahead. But for now, down into turn 1 is going to be Ausil. No, not quite. King sneaks back up the inside and retains the lead.
Great brakes. Really does.
Great battle in GT Le Mans. This is just like the real world, Finney, and how close this category is every single year here in iRacing, represented the same way.
Yeah, some fantastic stuff as we're approaching the last 10 minutes of this race, and its race has been winding down for quite a bit. And looking back up at the prototypes, too, just looking at Kenton Cook, he's not really been able to close a gap, and the gap's actually expanded to almost 5 seconds now between them.
Yeah, now Jeff Jacobs in his Trek, you see he's still following those GT Le Mans leaders. He's gained more time on Kevin Zhu. The last lap was a little bit slow, so he's 3.8 back from second place in his class, which is right here, the 2:43 is Zhu. So 9 minutes left, 3.5 seconds. That's a tall task, but this pace, I think he could get there.
I think he can, yeah. If he gets a bit of clean track, I think he's got a shot at it, just to make it interesting for Kevin. Kevin's going to be a tough pass, though, if he can get there.
3-car fight for 6th in GT Le Mans. Greg Obedia, a big jump over the curb. Talas Sadiq and Evan Schickel following right in line.
This is a very familiar sight to what we saw in the Rolex 24 this year, a BMW leading 2 Porsches in behind him.
And throttling up behind Talas Sadiq in the blue 911 RSR. Then Obedia out in front of this category, or in front of this group, rather, in the Ford GT, funnily enough, sponsored BMW. And Schickel goes up the inside. We'll try to take 7th place away.
Yeah, remember Schickel pit 4 tires and took tires on that car, so he's got more grip and better tires than the guys around him, so he's definitely putting those tires to good use.
And for the lead in this class, King hangs on, but Ausil had a nose ahead as they entered turn 1.
Yeah, I think I'm curious on what these guys are going to decide, because we saw Ausil, he was able to get quite a bit of a run on 32 Max King and almost pass him by the line. And that's really all that matters. You don't necessarily have to be clear; just have to have a nose ahead. So I'm curious if Ausil.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
it's a great point. Exactly. You don't have to beat him into turn 1 on the last lap. You just have to get him across the line.
And also too, if you look at the doors on the cars, you can see the position indicator that King ended up 2nd across the line, while Ausil was the one that beat him to the line last time by. So he might have been just testing the waters here. And I think that might be his plan.
Yeah, I see the one light lit up on the side of the 23, which shows that he was ahead at one time. But the scoring on the monitor is still telling me that he was.
No, I'm talking about, well, those are at the line. That's at the line.
Right, but I think the thing I'm wondering is this should show overall position at the line as well on here. So I'm not interesting. I wonder if there's this. Oh no! No, Johnson. Prototype leader. Damage on the nose of this car, and he's gone around for a loop and damaged that C7 Prototype. I heard Larry sighing, and it was GT Le Mans drivers in front of him. I think that was Talas Sadiq. Yes. Yeah. Got loose on the brakes, clobbered the pit wall, and Alessandrini got into it as well. And big damage for both those cars.
And
that makes it interesting in a prototype race, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. So Alessandrini's up ahead, but missing the entire nose of that car.
And that's going to matter. That is a significant loss of aerodynamic properties on that Corvette. And Kenton Cook is looking at this and licking his chops because here he comes.
Yeah, he's got a chance. He just realized he has a chance to win this race now after a huge shakeup in prototype. And it's amazing because we thought it was going to be a battle between Alessandrini and Johnson. Well, the tables have turned. It's now Alessandrini versus Ausil.
Wrong place, wrong time. And again, nothing that Johnson or Alessandrini did wrong there. It was just bad timing with a GT car getting into the fence.
And actually, let's take a look to see the difference of these two cars. If you can pull up the speed indicator for both of them.
Right on board with Kenton Cook. He's already at 160. And just up the road, Alessandrini's still stuck at about 165.
Yeah, and so far right now as they're running, Kenny Cook is running 4 or 5 miles an hour faster.
Yeah, 185. Alessandrini stuck at 180. Can't go any faster. Meanwhile, behind him, Kenton Cook, 188 miles an hour down into turn 1, and he's there.
In the draft, for sure, he'll be quicker. Now, can DJ even remain close with him if they swap spots?
I don't know. That car is absolutely mangled. I think John Heindhoff would call that deranged.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alessandrini is going to pretty much struggle on all parts of the track. I mean, not only do you need that for drag reduction, but also, I mean, you need that part of the car for also downforce as well. And he's missing the entire front, so it's definitely hurting him a bit. Kenny Cook deep into the brakes into the west horseshoe, as Alessandrini almost gets into Greg Obadia, that GTE car.
Yeah, 5 minutes and 40 seconds left, and you see Nicholas Johnson behind, so all three of these cars with each other, and Johnson has less damage for sure than Alessandrini, so Johnson could get back in this fight. This is far from over still with 5 minutes to go.
Well, here it could end here. Here comes Kenji Cook with a massive run with the draft, and also just a huge amount of drag for DJ Alessandrini, and he has a look on the outside now.
This should be easy with the much more...
DJ isn't going to make it easy, though.
Yeah, slipstreamed car as Cook goes by, takes the position. Alessandrini slots into second. Will he be able to hang tough with Cook? And where's Johnson? He's within draft range of Alessandrini now.
And he's going to try to use Alessandrini as much as he can to potentially pass him by turn 1 and then catch up to Kenton Cook. Well, he's doing high. Does he have a slowdown?
Probably has a slowdown, cut the bus stop.
That's going to pretty much ruin any chances he has, at least for the win.
Well, for what we've seen so far, I don't know if we can count anybody out.
well, for now as they run, unless Kenton Cook makes a mistake, although Alessandrini got a massive run on Kenton Cook. My worry is, can he keep up with him in the infield as well?
Yeah, I don't think that it'll bother him as much in the infield as long as the steering wheel's straight, but it's the straightaways I'm concerned about. If he can keep up with Cook on the straights, I don't see there's any reason why he couldn't win this race, even with the car as mangled as it is. Let's check in on other classes momentarily, just so that we get a quick update before the last couple laps. Max King still leads in GT1.
I was just watching this a little bit. So as they came around the last lap, King and Halcyon were close together, but they got caught up with some lap traffic, and Eric Jones was one of them. And they got separated a little bit. So Jones got in between King and Halcyon. Halcyon had to wait a couple of corners, almost the entire infield, before he could finally get by, and that put this gap now at about 1.6 seconds. Now Halcyon's got work to do to try and make that back up.
Yeah, running out of time. They only got probably about 3 or so laps left in this race. So Ken Halcyon, has really got to get on the loud pedal and try to catch back up to him.
So you know who else has got to get on the loud pedal is Jeff Jacobs. He spent about half his race recovering from that pit stop penalty. Well, he's only got 2.4 seconds to make up on Zoo, and he's still clawing away at it. I'm not sure he's going to have enough time. We're down to like the last 2 or 3 laps, but he has put in a valiant effort to try to claw back what he lost on the stop earlier tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Going back up to Kenton Cook and Alessandrini, and keeping toe, although he's starting to fall back just a little bit more each time.
Yeah, this is... If he can draft right back up to Kenton here, I think he'll be okay, but it doesn't look like he's able to keep pace with him now. And we'll have 3 minutes and 10 seconds left, which should be close to 2 laps to go if it's not already. Across the line. Should be 2 to go.
Yeah, it should be.
Down into turn 1, Alessandrini 6/10 back. I'm not sure he's got the car. Johnston, with all the time that he had to give up on the slowdown last lap, is way behind, dealing with some more lap traffic. He's negotiating now.
He's trying to get past these guys as much as he can, just in case something happens in the front. He can try to at least pick up second or first.
Richard Spicer had a slow lap in the number 25 GT Daytona car. His lead has dwindled down to about 4.7, which is the smallest it's been since about the halfway point.
He might just be taking it a bit easy here. I think he knows he's pretty much won this race as long as he doesn't make a mistake, so he could just be kind of backing off just to make sure he makes it to the finish line.
I hear another Ford GT, and that will be Ken Halcyon's car screaming, and 1.2 back from Max King. If something happens to that number 32 Porsche, this is not over. But as it stands, 1.5 seconds is a lot of ground to make up in 2 laps.
He's going to have to definitely catch up to the 32 within this infield section, at least get some sort of draft on the oval to make him catch back up. But he needs that draft to really be a competitor.
Yeah, you'd like to see yourself less than a full second, but if you're not, then you really can't see any kind of draft on the oval.
Minute 40 left on the board. As we hit a minute 38, that will mean that this time by will be the final lap of the 60-minute endurance event. A minute 30, white flag in the air for Kenton Cook in the number 13. It's been an up and down night. He went from the lead to spun out, back to the lead. 3.5 miles left for the SRO driver and former IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge driver with Alessandrini a second back.
Yeah, nothing else Drini could really do. He's been pushing that car to its limit as much as he can, completely missing that nose. It's honestly a great feat that he's able to keep that thing on the track the way it is.
He's known for not giving up, to give you that.
You're right. It's almost a win just to be able to keep it going, considering half the car, the whole front end is missing.
And with these guys working their way through the infield for GT Le Mans, Max King in control of this race. He's got a 1.2 second advantage. He will see the white flag this time. Hausil just out of draft range, reaching out the windshield, trying to catch this Porsche 911 RSR, but he's only going to have 3.5 miles left to do it.
Yeah, there's no
Check
really... I'm sorry,
check the podium status on your GTDs, though. Looks like Jacobs is right now on the tail of Kevin Zhu.
Oh boy, yeah, Jeff Jacobs in the 38. They're coming through for their white flag. Richard Spicer has a 5-second lead over Zhu, but for a second, it's still going to be a race all the way back to the checkers. Jacobs, 4/10 back into the braking zone for turn 1. 20 seconds left on the board for Kenton Cook into the bus stop for the final time.
Yeah, solid job there. He's made a few mistakes this race, but he's had some luck be on his side with Alessandrini and Johnson running into trouble late into this race and was able to pick up the pieces when it mattered the most as he rounds out a NASCAR turn 3 and turn 4.
The time has expired for Kenton Cook. A dramatic change of events in the final couple laps. 60 minutes later, he's going to win at Daytona for the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League. He's a winner again at Daytona. DJ Alessandrini comes across in second, Johnson third. Now we jump to GT Le Mans. King, a second out in front of Hausil. Can Ken close the gap in the final moments of this one?
I don't think it's going to be close enough as these guys are on the back straightaway now. Hausil is now within a second, but I think it's too little too late.
9/10 back. If he gets a really good bus stop, he might have a chance at it through the final couple tricky corners. A gain for Hausil there, but can he carry the speed off?
Yeah, I think he's definitely able to. Down to half a second. He got a fantastic run through the bus stop.
Final corner, NASCAR turn number 4, Max King and Ken Hausil. They dueled, they battled for 60 minutes. They come back to the checkers. It's going to be only a couple tenths of a second. Drag race to the line. Max King, by only a tenth of a second, he's going to get it done at Daytona. Now we jump to second in GT Daytona. Richard Spicer is going to get the job done. He'll win the race, but Kevin Zhu and Jeff Jacobs to the line, side by side. Here they are, and it will be Jeff Jacobs by a nose.
Wow.
By 33 thousandths of a second across the line.
At least some sort of redemption for the 30. I'm sure we would have liked to have been in victory lane, but I think we'll definitely be happy with a second place, at least at the end of that.
Larry, your thoughts after 60 wild minutes here at Daytona? What a great race. All 3 classes.
You talk about wild. I mean, wild up and down, all 3 classes. The intermixing was great. I think it worked out really well. I think a lot of good courteous driving up and down, but the battles, just watching it unfold, the prototypes, great battles in the GTLMs and the GTDs. I think great driving. I think is a wonderful field. I love this format. I think the long format really worked well tonight.
Absolutely. We're going to let the results scroll across your screen here. Of course, it was Cook, Alessandrini, Johnston, your podium in Prototype for GT Le Mans. Max King, Ken Hausil, and Kyle Herbst brought it home in third in his 911 RSR in the number 89 Porsche. For GT Daytona, Richard Spicer, Jeff Jacobs, and Kevin Zhu in a very tight battle back to the checkered flag. They will come home second and third in GT Daytona. So we'll let the results scroll through one more time. 10 lead changes in Prototype. That's almost a lead change. Actually, it is a lead change once every 6 minutes, which is really, really awesome here at Daytona, Finian.
Yeah, fantastic stuff out of all these guys. A little bit chaotic at the start, which I'm sure there were a lot of guys were surprised when they lined up in the grid, and there was no pace car ahead of them, so I think some guys were a little bit confused, but for the most part, yeah, these guys kept it pretty clean and green throughout the race.
So that's going to do it for us for now. We'll be back in just a minute to talk to your podium, your class winners, so stay with us. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Welcome back live to Sim TV in the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League. We're here now with our GT Le Mans winner of the night, Max King, and the number 32 Flying Lizard 911 RSR. Max, an epic battle all race long between you and Ken House Seal. Came down to a 1/10 of a second at the end there. Just walk us through your night and try to drive away from one of the best in the business.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we were starting qualifying, I knew that was going to be a close battle because he got me by a 1/2 So I was like, all right, it's going to be between me and him the whole race. I just, got not screwed up. And I was trying to save tires on the first stint so I can have something for him at the end. And man, we were dicing around the whole time. And I think he was trying to save some gas before the first pit stop. So me and him were pretty content there. We knew we had the same pace. So we were driving pretty good. But then he went into the pits a lap before me, and I came in the lap afterwards. So I was saying, you know what? Let's try to put power out lap and in lap in and see what happens. And he came out. I saw him flash right by me when I came out of pit lane. Like, oh crap, I gotta go get him. So I was just charging hard, and then eventually we caught some traffic, which bottled us up a little bit. And then I eventually took what was it, about 15 minutes ago, I took a chance and made a pass. I saw we had some lap cars coming up, and eventually, from racing, I realized that if you get to the lap traffic first, you have definitely a better chance of getting through it, not getting held up. So I took that chance, and it wound up paying off. But I could only gap them to about 1.5, 1.7 seconds. And with the last lap to go, I tell you what, my palms are drenched. They're still a little bit shaken, and I was trying to just play it safe, not do anything dumb on the brakes or anything like that, not get myself crossed up. And I took a little slow through a chicane just to play it safe, and I lost a 1/2 second there. I was like, oh man, he's in the draft range. It's going to be close now because he was practicing that run up all race. So eventually we came across the line, 0.2 seconds apart, and man, that was a great race. That was probably one of the best races I had on iRacing for sure. But this might be the last race I can do because I'm switching shifts for my work. So I was glad to get the win on the last race I can win.
And a great, spectacular race you had there with Ken. Max, congratulations on the victory. Thanks for talking to us, and hopefully we'll see you around again in the future.
Oh yeah, I'll try to get on when I can. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for talking, Max.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we'll talk to our prototype class winner of the night, Kenton Cook, the number 13. Kenton, up and down the order tonight, led the race for the start, then down the order after a bit of an oopsie, then back forward with someone else's oopsie. Just walk us through your very entertaining night from inside that C7 DP.
Oh my gosh, I was terrible. Yeah, I just made 2 mistakes that shouldn't have been made, but it was still pretty fun coming in the pit stop because like in practice I kind of practiced coming into pit lane and coming out of pit lane and just trying to maximize the in and out lap there, and was able to make up a couple seconds on Nick on that transition, which was cool. But yeah, then once I got to him, I effed up again, and it was what it was. But it was fun, and it is what it is. It's racing. We're all here to have fun, and man, I was licking my chops to catch DJ there at the end, but yeah, I ended up getting him at the fault of someone else, but that's okay. It's we had a good fun either way.
How difficult was it tonight to wheel this beast around this course that has so many more bumps and bruises in the track surface than the newer track? Was that a concern at all, or did it handle okay on the banks?
Well, I got to thank DJ for the setup because it worked real good. So I'm gonna stick with that setup next time if we ever have another one. But it's certainly bumpy.
Kenton Cook, winner in prototype tonight. Kenton, thanks for talking to us. Congratulations again on another victory, and hopefully we'll see you around again.
Copy that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Now we're going to pull in our second place finisher in prototype. We're going to let Larry take care of this one. Larry, go for it.
DJ, wow, that was a bit exciting. I thought for the first half of the race, it could be kind of boring for you. You just sort of sat back and watched from the 3rd and 4th position. But about 10 minutes ago, it got a little interesting. Walk me through, as you come off of the oval into traffic, kind of what went through your mind as there was a Porsche flipping in your way.
Oh crap. His car, I saw it getting loose and it hit the wall, and then it kind of like did a weird internet thing where I could not predict where it was going, so I ended up just driving right into the side of it, unfortunately. And as you guys saw, I lost my hood, and I bet that's kind of important for moving the air out of the way efficiently.
Well, that's what we were wondering. Is we were wondering, well, we're trying to compare top speeds. The trap speed's a little bit lower than Kenton's and Nick's, but we weren't quite sure if it was affecting you a lot. And then we were kind of watching you in the infield. So, how was the handling, and how did it feel differently after the incident?
So it was just a little slow, top speed, but honestly, it still drove fine. It understeered a little bit, I think, due to aero damage, but honestly, it was still fine. I had a meatball flag, and I decided right when I got it, I'm just gonna go to the end and not serve it just to make the stream fun. And if I got DQ'd, whatever. Like I didn't care, just because I want it to be fun to watch on stream. And they must have changed the way the meatball flags work, because I was out there for 5 laps and it never gave me a stop and go penalty. It never DQ'd me. It didn't do anything like that. And also at the end, I was flirting around on 24 incident points. So one more, I would have had to drive through. So the end of the race was not to plan, but my strategy for the whole race was just to sit back, save fuel in the first thing, and then see if I could lose those guys for the second part of the race with all the fuel I saved, because I would come out before them.
Well, that's what we were wondering. Actually, we were speculating on that as you were sitting back in fourth spot early on, not making a move, and then when you did get up into second or third, you weren't really trying to make any passes. It kind of seemed like you were just sort of in fuel conserve mode. At what point did you have to change that? Was that when everything kind of got broken up with the incidents around you?
Well, Paul Darling unfortunately collected me, and he actually spun me, and that made me lose Nick and Kenton. And I was practicing with those guys earlier today, and we were all around the same pace, and I was like, man, this is gonna be a fun race. And then we get into this race, and I was the slowest one by far. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna outdrive these guys, so I just have to outthink them. I just have to put myself in a position where Daytona's silly and the draft will matter, and I just have to be in second on the last lap, and I can win this thing. And so I was just biding my time. I was just being patient, just minding my own business, just being aggressive on them when we were coming up the traffic, just so that they couldn't use the traffic as a pick. But when Paul got into me, it kind of changed that plan, and then Kent made a mistake, so then I just jumped on his draft and brought me back to Nick, and then Kent made another mistake, and so then I was just hanging out with Nick, and it didn't look like Kent was going to catch us. And and then the Porsche became very intimate with the wall and kind of changed everything. But before the Porsche hit the wall, I felt like it was my race to win. I did a couple trial runs coming out of the bus stop, and my nose was in front. And especially if I got to the inside, below the banking part. So I was just kind of hanging out. I was just waiting to win the race, honestly. And that didn't happen at all. It's when you don't have when you're not the fastest car, you can still win. It's just less likely.
They said that's why they run the races, right? You have to actually run the race to see how it all plays out. And I think that was part of what the excitement was sitting back watching it, was these wild cards kept getting thrown in. You just don't know. We watched it between Max King and Ken Halseal in their race when they got caught in lap traffic and it separated them. We watched it happen in the GT3 race. It happened to you guys. From a spectator view, it was awesome. It was exciting. I'm really happy. I was excited to watch the 3 while the 4 or 5 years it started. Put on an amazing show and display of speed at the start of this race, and I personally would love to see this format every week. I think this was a lot of fun.
It was a fun challenge. I'm not used to being the slowest one in the pack, so it was a fun troubleshooting challenge to work around.
It was a good mix. It was a great mix. So good race tonight. Glad that the Porsche in your way didn't take you completely out. You're able to continue and pull it back up to second spot. So good job tonight.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, so we're going to move on now to the last driver that is hanging out in the broadcast booth. It'll be Nick Johnson, who finished tonight in third place. Nick, you led some laps, but things didn't quite pan out. What happened?
I think for once, probably the lights flashing may have been my demise. I was trying to let the GTs know that I was coming. I had DJ right on my tail and Kenton closing, so I didn't have much time to spare. I needed to make quick work of traffic, and I was just planning on going around the outside, and I never even saw that Porsche get sideways. Next thing I knew, I was basically spinning out, and I went to take off, and DJ was kind of coming through. I had to wait a second. By the time I got going, Ken had gone by, and he was gone, and it was just unfortunate circumstance. It is what it is. It happens. Had a lot of fun racing. Hopefully, you guys caught some of that at the very beginning, because that was a lot of fun between the four of us there at the beginning.
Nick, a valiant effort tonight. Things didn't quite pan out how you wanted them to, but third place podium in Prototype. Hopefully we'll see you around again. I appreciate you jumping in here and talking to us.
No problem. See you guys.
See you later. That'll wrap up everything tonight. Finian, really, really awesome racing tonight. We were just saying how much fun it is to watch any multi-class racing, but especially the IMSA class structure, especially at a place like Daytona. As the sun sets at another race here at Daytona International Speedway, your thoughts on this first endurance round of the season?
Yeah, honestly, it was really, really fun to watch these guys, and everyone on the grid did a phenomenal job. Obviously, some incidents here and there, but I think for the most, it was some really good racing too. I think was the best part. So a little bit of separation in the GTD field, but GT Le Mans and Prototype was really close all throughout the night.
Of course, we had Larry Lefty McLeod join us. Larry, thanks for jumping in here with us, and your thoughts on what we describe as a very, very entertaining 60 minutes here at Daytona.
I am very well entertained. I had a lot of fun. I love this long format. I think these mixed classes in particular work very well together. I think the way these guys spread them out talent-wise worked out really well. I hope they all had a lot of fun. I think we had a lot of fun watching them, and I hope we get to do this again.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for us tonight. The next race will be back to Skip Barber cars next week. Where are we going? Watkins Glen, home track for us. So Watkins Glen International next week. The next thing you're going to see on SimTV, I believe, is going to be Sunday night Indy Elite Series action from Motegi on the 9th of February. So that'll be at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday night. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. My name's Kyle Heyer, joined by Finian DeCuna. We'll see you next time around.